Well, we just have so much news after the long holiday weekend, and we have to start with arguably the biggest news in the world. Tulsi Gabbard has left the Democratic Party, and she's done it with a pretty conspiracy and lie-laden video. Now, this is actually not very big news. I'm sort of kind of kidding around. It's tongue-in-cheek. Tulsi Gabbard is an individual who used to be a congresswoman representing the state of Hawaii, and she ran for president and got, like one kind of like a 2% support. And then she, although it was obvious to some of us that she was clearly a sort of populist rhetoric, reactionary contrarian of no real substance, adding no real value to the conversation. Not everybody understood that. Even some of my fellow leftists kind of fell for it. And she's been more and more outwardly moving to the right, speaking at CPAC, the extreme right-wing convention, being selected to fill in as host for Fox News propagandist Tucker Carlson. And listen, this is the final step in her public transformation. It's really not that much of a transformation. So here is the video, 80 seconds, in which Tulsi announces her principled and defiant abandonment of the Republican Party. Listen closely, because there's a lot of nonsense in here.
I can no longer remain in today's Democratic Party that's under the complete control of an elitist cabal of warmongers.
Now, elitist cabal, that is very carefully chosen language to appeal to the reactionary, conservative, MAGA, big lie, JFK Jr. is currently the vice president type of people. Elitist cabal is QAnon language. Do not think that the choice of that language is an accident. Now, I'm not saying Tulsi is necessarily a QAnon person. I'm not saying that. But that's language that is finely tuned and tested to press the buttons in the brains of very particular people. It's not an accident, okay? And by the way, warmongers. Remember, Hillary was going to get us into 5 wars. Biden was going to get us into 5 wars. None of it has happened. Okay. None of it has happened, but they love to say it. These are MAGA right-wing conspiracy talking points.
Who are driven by cowardly wokeness, who
remember the wokeness. What they think of as wokeness is the tiniest sliver of the left. It's not me. It's not really my audience. It's not the Democratic Party. It's same old stuff.
Us by racializing every issue.
Okay. The criticism that the left racializes everything is a way to disqualify a priori any discussion of racism or racial inequality. That you go, they racialize everything. Hard right move. She's gone fully in.
And stoking anti-white racism.
And that's the other side. The left is anti-white and racist against whites. The left is mostly white, guys. That's the reality.
Who actively work to undermine our God-given freedoms that are enshrined in our Constitution, who are hostile to people of faith and spirituality.
And again, it's not hostility to people of faith or spirituality. It's hostility to imposing that faith or spirituality on civil government. It's about openly, as Marjorie Taylor Greene and Boebert and all of them have said, saying we are Christian nationalists and that should be enshrined in civil law. That's wrong. That's not constitutional.
Who demonize the police but protect criminals at the expense of law-abiding Americans.
And remember, the number of people saying defund the police, it's almost zero, and the movement has no power. Reform? Absolutely. The 10 to 12 point plan I outlined, of course. But this is, again, their new talking point. But remember, when they didn't like what happened on January 6th, they went after the Capitol Police. When they didn't like what happened with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, they go after the FBI. They're not the pro-police, pro-law enforcement people they even claim to be.
Who believe in open borders, who weaponize the national security state to go after their political opponents.
That's a Trump line. This is a full MAGA person now.
And above all, who are dragging us ever closer to nuclear war.
Isn't the guy threatening the nuclear war Putin the one who's actually doing that?
Now, I believe in a government that's of the people, by the people, and for the people.
Oh.
Unfortunately, today's Democratic Party does not.
Oh.
Instead, it stands for a government that is of, by, and for the powerful elite. Now, I'm calling on my fellow common sense, independent-minded Democrats to join me in leaving the Democratic Party.
All right. So then she says, leave the party with me. So she uses all the buzzwords that will make the right love her even more. She really hasn't been a Democrat for as long as I can remember. She's essentially a reactionary who puts her finger to the wind and says, you know, I didn't get any real attention from the left other than the small cult of personality I managed to kind of coalesce around me because I don't really bring anything to the table. So let's go to the place where you don't need to bring anything substantive to the table. I can just use buzzwords and talking points and talk about an elitist cabal and get attention. That's the conspiracy right. That's the MAGA right. Hillary was right again, guys. She is once again doing the bidding of the Russians. Again, not a Russian asset, not a Russian agent. This is the type of democracy destabilizing language that the Russians and the Chinese and everybody loves. Now, again, you can say, well, but listen, good for them then. Doesn't mean, fine. I'm just saying the idea that she is fundamentally acting in the best interest of the United States, as she claims, is obviously not true. She's becoming a great tool of these authoritarian right-wing regimes that love to frame the United States as being unstable democratically. And quite frankly, we are to some degree, but it's thanks to people like this. Not that they're pointing it out, they're causing that. Oh, Trump really won, all this different stuff. So here come the book deals. Here come the speaking engagements. If you follow the sort of money trail, it leads to the same type of people. They monetize being anti-woke. They monetize all the stuff that Tulsi is talking about here. The saddest thing about the entire Tulsi episode, and it is very sad, is the number of fellow leftists who were bamboozled by Tulsi. I'm glad I never fell for it. Go back to my clip in January of 2019. Watch the video I do about her. Watch it, and you will see how obvious it was to me at the time what she was up to. Sadly, many of my colleagues fell for it, but you can redeem yourself. Now it's becoming very clear, even to many of them. And I've gotten so many emails from people in the audience saying, David, I totally fell for it. You were right. I fell for it. I think this is the final loop. We can close the envelope and mail it in. Bad news for Herschel Walker. We're still waiting on new Herschel Walker polling, I think, although I'll take a look in a moment as to whether we have new polling. Herschel Walker, it turns out, urged his girlfriend to have a second abortion, she says to the New York Times. This is reported by CNBC. So remember, the story here was that early last week, this scandal broke wherein Georgia Republican Senate candidate Herschel Walker, who claims to be against abortion in all cases, abortion is murder, no exceptions for incest, rape, life of the mother, none of it. Turns out that he was accused credibly with receipts of urging and then paying for an ex-girlfriend of his to get an abortion because it would have been inconvenient. Remember, abortion's murder, rape, incest. No, inconvenience was a legitimate reason for him to urge and then pay for a woman to get an abortion. The new report is he actually urged her to get a second abortion, and she didn't. CNBC writes, a woman who accused Herschel Walker of paying for her abortion in 2009 revealed he urged her to end a second pregnancy, per the New York Times. The woman said their relationship ended after she refused to have the second procedure, according to the report. The Trump-backed Georgia Republican running to unseat Raphael Warnock has denied paying for an abortion. That denial is not particularly credible at this point in time. Walker has denied knowing who the woman is, despite reporting from both the Times and the Daily Beast that she's the mother of a son she had with Walker. So I believe there's four. I don't have it in front of me, but I believe that there's 4 women, at least, with whom he's had children. You would think that he would say, well, if it's one of those 4 women, I must know who it is. It's all crazy. And the question now is, will this end the candidacy? We still don't have any new polling. I hope by tomorrow or later today there will be new polling taken after the scandal started. He should be done. Whether he will be is unclear because many of these Georgia Republicans are rationalizing the whole thing and saying, well, He would still ban abortion. He went and paid for one, but he would still vote to ban it. Let's see what the new polling shows. Raphael Warnock should be winning by 40. They tentatively had a debate scheduled for this Friday. Walker has reportedly still not confirmed that he will be there, and so we will follow that closely. And if indeed they do have that debate, you can be sure that I will be streaming that live. Donald Trump's lawyers are now turning on each other. It is getting very ugly and predictably so. Law and Crime has a very good piece. Trump's lawyers turning against each other. Legal experts react to the report that Christina Bobb said she was told to sign the alleged false statement about Mar-a-Lago documents. This is really interesting what's going on. I mean, of course, it's a train wreck. It's a car crash in every way, but it's also interesting. Legal Twitter was abuzz over reports that one of former President Trump's attorneys recently spoke with federal prosecutors about various details regarding allegedly classified documents discovered at Mar-a-Lago. According to NBC News, citing three sources familiar with the matter, attorney Christina Bobb, a one-time talking head on One American News, named two other Trump attorneys involved with the case during a recent talk with the U.S. Department of Justice. As Law and Crime previously reported, Bobb signed a letter in June of this year saying that Trump had returned all documents subject to a May grand jury subpoena. We know that wasn't true. That letter claimed Trump no longer had any documents identified as classified at his Florida estate. The statement Bobb signed, however, was allegedly authored by Trump attorney Evan Corcoran, according to the New York Times. The report is that she now is saying, I was told to sign it. I didn't believe that it was true. I'm another one of these victims here. And very, very quickly, it is not only Trump attorneys getting attorneys, but it is Trump attorneys pointing the finger at other attorneys. Now, there's a legitimate legal question. How solid is your defense if you say, I knew it was false, but they told me to sign it? Different legal opinions have come down on this. Some say this is actually not a crime that Christina Bobb committed. I'm relaying what someone else told me. As long as she is telling the truth about that, and there isn't evidence that this was her idea, her thought to sign and put together this document that someone told her to do it, you can make the case that she has not committed any crime. That's one legal opinion. The other legal opinion is she is confessing that she knew that what she was being told is false. You know, there's this legal idea of the lawyers are following what their clients tell them they believe. And it is not really up to the lawyer to determine whether they are being told something that's true or false. But if she is admitting she knew that it was false and still signed off on it, I've also read legal opinions that say, no, she could also be in legal jeopardy. What we know is Christina Bobb was hired by Trump for her ability to be a talking head on television. And that is often how Donald Trump hires his lawyers. We will have to see where this all falls, but it is an extremely risky from a career standpoint decision to agree to be Donald Trump's attorney. So Trump's attorneys now pointing fingers at each other. And I predict in the next month, it's going to get very, very interesting. Where this falls, let me know what you expect. Find me on Twitter at @dpacman, and we will be back right after this. Don't forget that the best way to support the David Pakman Show is by becoming a member, which gives you access to the daily bonus show, the regular show with no commercials. You also get access to our entire archive of every episode dating back a really long time, and plenty of other awesome membership perks. Go to joinpacman.com and use the coupon code BETTER21 for a huge discount. Joinpacman.com. All right, so Donald Trump held two rallies over the weekend. We are really getting into just the very, very end here of the 2022 midterm campaign period. We have debates this week, next week, the week after. I'll be live streaming a bunch of them. Donald Trump's rally schedule has gotten very busy, and each of these rallies wilder and crazier than the previous. Let's go in reverse chronological order. Donald Trump speaking Sunday night, or afternoon, as it were, in Arizona in support of Kari Lake and Blake Masters and other really dangerous extreme candidates. Donald Trump was completely incoherent, talking about the planting of documents, jumping back and forth between they were my documents and I had the right to have them at Mar-a-Lago, to they planted the documents. Listen to this, making no sense, soaking wet Trump, dripping wet as he tells these lies.
The National Archives put a trigger warning on the Constitution of the United States. Did you know that? And the Bill of Rights and other great documents that we have in our country, founding documents.
Trigger.
Considering them to be dangerous. They consider the Constitution to be dangerous. These are radical left lunatics, and they lose documents. They plant documents.
Oh.
Let's see, is there a book on nuclear destruction or the building of a nuclear weapon cheaply? Let's put that book in with Trump. No, they plant documents. I mean, they have a terrible reputation.
So Trump now saying, despite at the very same rally saying, listen, these were my documents. They took them. They got to give them back. They're my documents. Now he's saying, well, they planted stuff, and it included a book on how to make a nuke. Wow, that's a new allegation. I hadn't heard that before. Trump then says, listen, everything they found was mine. They should give it all back. Wait, but I thought you said they planted the stuff. Was it yours or was it not yours?
They don't get enough credit. By contrast, I had a small number of boxes in storage at Mar-a-Lago, guarded by Secret Service and my people and everybody. I mean, it's safe. When you look at these other people, what they did, and the FBI raided my home and violated my Fourth Amendment rights and many other rights. And under the Sox decision, this is a very important decision that was made. They call it the Sox decision because, again, it had to do with Bill Clinton and his socks. There is no crime. You know, there is no crime. It's not a crime. And they should give me immediately back everything that they've taken from me because it's mine. It's
right.
mine.
Oh, wait, but I thought you said they planted it. So now he says it's his stuff, give it back. Fine. But for a while, like 5 minutes earlier, the story was the stuff was planted. Another completely unbelievable moment. Arizona gubernatorial Republican candidate Kari Lake talks about Hunter Biden's crack pipe, really elevating the discourse at these rallies.
Now, I got to tell you,
Yeah.
I have some of these know-nothing consultants who tell me, you know, you really need to back away from President Trump right now. And I say to them, put down Hunter's crack pipe right now.
Oof.
Wouldn't it be horrible? Wouldn't it be horrible? What would it say about my character if I stepped away from my friends? If I step away from my friends, that means I would step away from you, and I will never step away from the people of Arizona. And so for those know-nothing consultants and the media, I want to show you what it looks like when I step away from President Trump.
Show us. And gives Trump a big hug there. So really just out of control with the Hunter Biden stuff. And then by the way, she could win. She's leading by like a point or two right now. That woman could be the next governor of Arizona, as scary and horrifying as that is. And then Donald Trump now also the anti-trans and parents' rights portion of these speeches. It's a staple at every rally now.
One of the first things we must do is stand up for parents' rights. Can you believe I'm even saying that? We're going to fight for parents' rights. Who would ever think you have to say that? We're going to fight for parents' rights. 10 years ago, if you said that, they'd say, you're crazy. What? Of course you're going to fight for parents' rights. Today, you have to make a case for it. We will get critical race theory out of our schools, out of our military, which we had it out, and out of every part of our federal, state, and local governments. And at long last, every parent in America must be empowered to opt out of the forced indoctrination in the classroom and send their child to the public, private, charter, religious, or homeschool of their choice.
Then he goes on to say no teacher should be allowed to teach transgender, whatever that means, without parental permission. So that is now a staple of the rallies. That's the Arizona rally. Trump dripping wet, confused, extreme. But that was nothing compared to the previous day's rally in Nevada, which is where we're going to go next. Donald Trump had a rally on Saturday in Nevada. And at this rally, his brain genuinely appeared to malfunction and break. He talked about a Chinese restaurant bowling alley at which documents were reportedly stored, as if it somehow means that what he did with his documents at Mar-a-Lago is okay. Listen to this story that Trump told.
George H.W. Bush took millions of documents to a former bowling alley and a former Chinese restaurant where they combined them. So they're in a bowling alley / Chinese restaurant.
Now, what's the truth of the story? The truth is that when the National Archives is participating in the process of the creation of a presidential library, they will often rent or lease some space wherever the library is being built or close to where they are working. And it is true that the National Archives, NARA, they leased what was essentially a warehouse to temporarily store documents for George H.W. Bush in College Station, Texas. It was a building that at one point was a bowling alley, and part of the building was a Chinese restaurant. Trump wants to frame it as George H.W. Bush took a whole bunch of documents just like Trump did and put them at what was at the time a functioning bowling alley or Chinese restaurant. That's not what happened. NARA, properly in control of documents, leased a space that used to be that. It has no connection whatsoever to what Donald Trump did. And every one of these stories has like a kernel of truth wrapped in 99% lies. Trump going on during this speech about when are they going to prosecute Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and all of them.
I believe that. What do you think? Yes, Mike? When will they investigate and prosecute Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, George Bush, and look into what took place with George Bush's father, a very nice man, and the warehouse of documents? And what about Barack Hussein Obama? Are they under potential prosecution? I don't think so. I don't think they are. A Chinese restaurant and a bowling alley.
Yeah. So Trump just focusing on they should all be prosecuted. Of course, they didn't do any of the things that Donald Trump did. Trump also fixating on Bill Clinton and a sock drawer, but he pronounces it a sock draw. It's very interesting.
They're still looking for those pages. Bill Clinton took millions of documents from the White House to a former car dealership in Arkansas. We love Arkansas, I can tell you. We won Arkansas both times also. And kept classified recordings in his sock drawer.
Sock drawer?
In fact, he supposedly put the information from the White House into his socks and left them.
These rallies are so insane. At another point, Trump very dangerously bragged about how big the crowd was on January 6th, 2021, as if that's something to cheer about, given the hell and destruction that crowd unleashed. But the crowd in Nevada seems to like it.
And these corrupt people will never take a camera and turn it around and show them how many people are here. They never do it. They're corrupt. They never do it. You know, I never knew the cameras, because this took place right from, they never want to show how massive our crowd was. You know the biggest crowd I've ever seen? January 6th. And you never hear that.
And the crowd loves it. By the way, at these rallies, the crowd constantly is booing and sort of jeering the media at the back of the rally. The only media at the back of these rallies are right-wing outlets, Right Side Broadcasting and Newsmax. And Newsmax didn't even cover Trump's Arizona rally, so I don't know what they're complaining about. Then Trump does the QAnon music, and during the QAnon music, he complains about commercial airports, which, by the way, Trump doesn't ever go to because he flies private. And it's weird, but it's also kind of funny in a way. Check this out.
A nation whose once revered airports are dirty and a crowded mess. You sit and wait for hours and then are notified that the plane won't leave, and they have no idea when they will. Where ticket prices have tripled, they don't have the pilots to fly the planes, and they don't seek qualified air traffic controllers anymore.
Yeah, Trump really very much affected by just what goes on at airports. That's absolutely something that is an issue for him. Last one, and then we'll move on very briefly to a bonus clip. Trump is still talking about Hillary's emails in 2022.
But almost as bad, crooked Hillary deleted 33,000 emails under congressional subpoena.
Zavina.
She acid washed them, although I do believe they're in the State Department, because it's very hard to get rid of them, but they acid wash, very expensive.
I believe they're in the State Department. Trump talks about emails as if they are physical things. It's very interesting.
Process, that's why nobody does it.
She had 4 ideas in a box.
And then pounded her phones with hammers, making them totally unrecognizable to the naked eye. So she took those phones and she pounded the hell out of them.
Yeah. So there's the Hillary story. And then here's just a bonus. Check this out. Here is a woman, Fiore. I forget this woman's first name. She just makes up unemployment numbers that are completely untrue, but the crowd doesn't know any better.
Under President Trump, we had a little over 3% unemployment.
Oh, okay.
Do you know the last time that happened? It was 1969. Under Biden and Obama, we're at 10%, right? And even more now.
That's completely untrue. We are at 3.5% unemployment right now. She says we are at over 10% unemployment. The crowd doesn't seem to think much of it. These are just obvious lies, but that crowd welcomes all of it. These rallies continue to demonstrate the level of delusion and disconnection from reality that these folks have. And when we talk about, well, how do we get them back? How do we get them back to sense it, to common sense and normality? I don't know the answer, because they will accept whatever they are told. Later in the show, we'll see some interviews with the rally goers. All of these clips, if you're listening today, you want to see them in their full glory, destructive glory, we'll have them on our Instagram, which you can find at David Pakman Show. Very quick break and right back. If you value what we do at the David Pakman Show, remember to support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show, where you can get access to behind the scenes videos, the daily bonus show, the commercial-free daily show, as well as special discounts on merch, including hats, hoodies, mugs, and t-shirts. You can support the show for as little as $2 a month. Check it out at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Well, it's a very special day because we have today returning to the program, Mike Lindell, the CEO and inventor of MyPillow, known affectionately to many in our audience as Mike Pillow, or even just Pillow, the word pillow. It's like Madonna at this point, Mike. It's really incredible, the branding around that. Did you think at this you would be so ubiquitous in the United States sort of cultural milieu at this point?
No, back when I invented MyPillow, I worked shows for years, just doing home shows and fairs, and it was a hard 7-year grind. But then when we did the first infomercial, it kind of went. I was living in my sister's basement, and all of a sudden it just exploded, and it just I guess when we did that first infomercial, going to the #1 infomercial in the world in 30 days,
right?
It was kind of a. It was a dream come true, the American dream, right?
So to speak, yeah. Listen, I want to get right into the context and the meat of this, because you and I spoke about a year ago, and at one point it wasn't clear if you remembered that conversation, but I know you've reviewed it. I want to run by you the following. You said over the last couple years, in August, that Trump would be back in office by the end of the month. That was August 2021. You said in November of 2021 that it would be in the Supreme Court by Thanksgiving, that it was, quote, locked in stone. You said at the end of 2021 that it was still happening by the end of that year. You have made all of these specific time predictions, and as we know, none of them have happened. Why not?
Well, there's a big reason for that. The evidence I got on January 9th was by a person, which I can come out with his name now, Dennis Montgomery. He was a whistleblower with the CIA. He worked with the CIA and the government for years, developing a thing called Hammer Scorecard.
Okay.
And this is all the information he gave me on January 9th. When we were going to release it at the Cyber Symposium, we were told, because there's a government gag order on it, that we cannot release it. But Dennis put in to get it released about the same time we did our show last year. He put that in, and they said they wouldn't release it. We went ahead with the cyber symposium. We could show that we had the data, that it was from the 2020 election, but we couldn't show the back end data. There was on the third day, they would not let us show it. My lawyers said no. They advised us to, don't put it out. Let's work on this gag order. Now, years went by, and then I had the Moment of Truth Summit about a month ago. On stage, where Dennis has had this to get released in Nevada, I actually I bought the software now, and so I own it. So I have the software that Dennis developed and everything, and the data from the 2020 election. Now, I put in Nevada to get it released about a month ago. Just this last Thursday, the government came in and said, this is not going to be part of the gag order. So that is big news. It's breaking news. I didn't know that when we were going to get on your show. So now we can release it to the king. I can bring it to my lawsuits. And
Good.
We subpoenaed on Friday, Brennan, Clapper, Negroponte, Baker. We subpoenaed all these guys. You're probably not going to see that in the news.
No, well, I can't imagine that they'll respond to the subpoenas. But Mike, you've mentioned so much. Let me just make one comment here.
Yeah.
Dennis Montgomery, a con man. I mean, just an out and out con man, habitual liar, engaged in 5 major frauds, terrorist software hoax, Nevada gubernatorial bribery scandal, wiretapping allegations that he has not been able to prove. We're talking about an out-and-out con man here.
Well, you know what? You can say that, but you can go to DennisMontgomery.com now, and all that has been completely fabricated. So if you go to DennisMontgomery.com, we put that up just for comments like yours there, because they have attacked him.
But hold on a second, Mike. I want to make sure I know what you're saying here. You're saying that the reporting about Dennis Montgomery in the New York Times, the Register from the UK, Bloomberg, the Las Vegas Review-Journal, New West, Nevada Today, NPR, Wired, Courthouse News Service, USA Today, Las Vegas. It's all fake. It's all a lie.
Yeah, you know what, David?
Wow.
Yes, and here's what I'm telling you that's why we put up the DennisMontgomery.com page. What they've done is just the same kind of attacks I've gotten since I wanted to get rid of the machines, the voting machines in our country.
Which we'll get to.
I was the evangelist, getting people, I used to be an addict, getting people out of addiction. My company and I have been relentlessly attacked, just like Dennis Montgomery was. Dennis was never arrested. Dennis has been a gag order on his data. You can say all you want about Dennis Montgomery, but numbers speak for themselves.
Well, but I'm not saying anything in my defense, Mike. I'm just saying what you're alleging
well, you're saying if you got the data, which I have, and the government just said now we can show it to the world. You asked me what was holding this back.
Okay.
And by the way, the Supreme Court case, there is a case right now in the Supreme Court that is almost 80% of what we were going to have in the original.
What's the name of that case?
I don't have it on me. I can get it for you, David. I did. Why don't you, Caitlin, go ask Kurt what the name of that case is.
What the name of the case. So, okay. I mean, there's just so much here, Mike. So the 10-year media record that goes from 2012 to 2022 on Dennis Montgomery, you're saying that was a decade-long effort to smear him, and it's all fake.
To suppress it. They didn't want his data coming out to the world. And if you go back, there was even back in 2017 on Fox, there was Sean Hannity, Sarah Carter, another one. They brought up Dennis Montgomery. It all got pushed under the table. They did not just the 2020 election. This software is it goes very deeper than that. And that's why the government just said that we can release the 2020 election, because that's my evidence, David.
Right.
I do have lawsuits against me by companies like Dominion and Smartmatic, which everybody seems to protect. These companies that nobody knew of before, ES&S, Hart, Diable, that you paid for as a taxpayer. And my whole thing is here is, you know what? We can't have computers running our election. You just had it in Georgia where a Democrat, this nice lady and her husband, got 0 votes in her own precinct. And they looked into it. 3 Democrats. She went from third to first place.
But Mike, I want to try, because you have so many different areas in which you claim expertise and involvement. We're jumping around a lot. Let's kind of go sequentially a little bit if we can. So you're going to get us the name of the Supreme Court case. You say that Dennis Montgomery has been smeared over a 10-year period by 30 different media outlets. Okay. The FBI, we now know they took the pillow phone at the Hardee's drive-thru. Just to set the context, do you frequently go to Hardee's? Is that a common place you go?
Okay, that's pretty funny, David.
No, it's not a joke.
But, I was coming back from a hunting trip, and I was late to get back. I was filming commercials with my entrepreneurs for mystore.com.
Fair.
They were all waiting here, and I said, we've got to go through a drive-through. And we
That's
went
fine.
through the drive-through. And by the way, when they surrounded me, they weren't dressed like FBI. They were
I
cars.
know.
If
I
this
know.
would happen at night, I would have bashed through them and went to find a law enforcement officer.
You would have fled, you're saying.
I would have absolutely, because they didn't identify themselves. I would have thought they were bad guys. If it had been at night, I stepped out of my car and said, who are you and what do you want? Very loud so other people could hear.
Yeah.
The one guy says FBI, and I said, show me your badge. I don't believe you. Another one to my right, he said, show me yours. I figure if they each had badges, I'll give them that.
Okay.
And we pulled and started talking.
Fair. So I'm curious because there's a question of how they knew you would be there. Do you often go to Hardee's? It's not a joke.
No, and I'm never in that town. I never eat in that town. It was an hour and a half from where I live.
Okay.
And I was, like I say, I was down in another state hunting. They obviously tracked me, which was illegal to track me. They didn't have a warrant. And so that we did sue the government and the FBI. We've sued them both.
I know you have, and we will get to that.
First, Fifth, and Sixth Amendment rights.
I'm shocked you didn't add in more amendments to the lawsuit, but we'll get to that, Mike.
I'm not a lawyer. The lawyers are lawyers. My whole thing was when they said we want your phone.
Yeah.
I said, no, you're not getting my phone. I said, I want, arrest me. I've done nothing wrong. They said, no, we're not going to arrest you. I said, well, I want to call my lawyer. They said, no, you don't get to call your lawyer. And I said, well, let me get this straight. If you arrest me, I can call a lawyer. But if you don't arrest me, I can't call a lawyer, but you can take my personal property. And this day, everything's on a person's phone.
Okay.
And so they did let me call the lawyer eventually.
Here's what I want to ask you about all of this, Mike. I've previously interviewed two individuals, one named Carter Page, one named Roger Stone. During the interviews, they said they did not believe they were going to be charged ever. And of course, they ultimately were. Is your expectation at this point in time that you are going to be criminally charged?
No, that's not what they're looking into. They're looking into somebody else. I even asked them about January 6th. I said, is this involving January 6th? And they said, no. And I said, well, why don't you bring me there? Because I've offered to go there, even though I wasn't there on January 6th, to show them all this evidence that I can now show.
Okay.
And no, absolutely not. That's not what this is about. They want stuff in there about a case in Colorado.
Okay.
That this county clerk named Tina Peters.
Yes.
Went in and did her job. I didn't know her back then, so this is nothing to do. This is like the cyber symposium going forward. And they're just looking into the phone records, by the way, which they could have got. I said, here you go. I have nothing to hide. I'm as transparent as they come, David.
On the issue of Tina Peters, there have been allegations I've read that at one point you were essentially helping her hide out to evade justice. Is that true?
They after the cyber symposium, I didn't fly her there, but she made it to her lawyers took her to Texas.
Uh-huh.
And when you say I'm hiding her out, no, I didn't hide her out.
You weren't involved in getting her to Texas. She wasn't at a property you own. You weren't paying for a hotel room or anything.
No communication there whatsoever. I've got the name of that lawsuit if you want.
Please.
No, that's not the Nevada one. The Nevada lawsuit is Montgomery versus E. Trepid and case number 306.
But we're looking for the Supreme Court case you mentioned, right?
I want the Supreme Court one, Caitlin.
The Supreme Court. Okay, we'll get back to that.
That is like the Supreme Court for the election laws.
Okay. We'll get that Supreme Court case. Yeah. I want to go back to just one more detail of the FBI thing, then we'll move on to the machines and everything else.
Right. Yeah.
You just mentioned a few minutes ago, you said to the FBI agents, I'd rather go to jail than give up my phone.
No. And what I was wanting, because I knew I haven't done anything wrong.
No, I get that, Mike.
But David, here's my whole reasoning.
Okay.
the way we're at in our country right now, to get rid of these machines, I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, the biggest problem we have is lawfare, where Fox News, Newsmax, Salem Media, none of these guys talk. The only one that ever talks about it is people like you or Jimmy Kimmel, and I'm glad they come on your show where I can actually say, speak out. These guys, they've never said one thing. Even 2,000 Meals, Newsmax and Fox will not let them on because of lawfare.
Okay.
So I thought, gee, maybe this would be big enough news where they would put it on Fox, and they did.
Okay.
By the way, they did.
My question, though, was just going to be, you know that when you get arrested, they take all your stuff. So, like, you would have had to give up the phone anyway, right? You know that.
But Fox and Newsmax would have maybe started reporting about the biggest gorilla that we have to get rid of these electronic voting
I see.
machines.
If you had gotten
That's
us
my
arrested,
whole
it
goal,
would have gotten
everybody.
publicity.
It's not overturning elections. It's getting rid of these machines and having paper ballots hand counted like so many other countries do. The Netherlands, France, Germany. Instead, these other countries that are gone forever, like Venezuela, Australia, they don't get to ever have elections again. They're selections. And this has been proven out there. It's been proven over and over again with these machine companies, but nobody will talk about it because of what Smartmatic did February 4th of 2021 when they sued Fox News.
Okay. On the topic of the election, I just want, straight from the horse's mouth, your opinion.
You want the 2020 election, or you want all these other elections I've been investigating?
2020 connected to 24. Here's the question. Will Donald Trump be reinstated before January 2025, which is when the next winner is scheduled to be inaugurated?
What would you like me to say, David?
Whatever you believe.
I will tell you this.
Whatever you believe is what I want.
Here's my answer.
Yeah.
If we don't fix 2020, means getting rid of the electronic voting machines, melt them down and turn them into prison bars, we're not going to have a country. Look what the damage has been done in our country in 2 years by what's been going on. It's disgusting. I was just in Northern California. All these people there coming up to me, wanting pictures, wanting to know, hey, do we have a chance to get rid of it? We don't like $7.80 gas. Is there a chance? I said, you know what? It all started with a stolen election. Here's the Supreme Court case. It's called Moore versus Harper. It's case number 21-1271. And that is really critical to our country because these are all the things that the Secretary of State did, changed our laws when the legislatures make the laws.
Okay, but to be clear, Mike, that's a case I'm familiar with. You said you had a case at the court. This case has nothing to do with you.
No, this case is almost identical to what we were going to bring to the Supreme Court.
Oh, okay, but this case has nothing to do with you.
This actually got to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
So right now we don't have to put a new one in. We are going to put one in now with this evidence and stuff to get rid of the machines.
Fair, but what we want here is
we've done in Arizona and we've done in Alabama 2 preliminary junctions to get rid of these electronic voting machines.
What we want on the program.
That's my whole focus, David.
What we want on the program is just clarity, because I don't want anybody to misunderstand. When you said you have that case, this case you just cited has nothing to do with you.
This case here is everything I would have wanted to do, but we're in 2 tracks coming to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
They got there first.
Got it. Understood.
Right.
To close one other loop, and we are making progress here, even if it doesn't seem like it.
And realize that, just I'm going to tell you something, just when you say you or whatever, this all me, that every focus out there, all across our country, is to get rid of these electronic voting machines.
Which we will get to momentarily.
Right.
So that I can move on to that. I didn't get an answer from you about, will Trump be reinstated before January 25? What's your belief?
My belief is I would hope that, but I can't say. There's no, with the evidence now that would come out that I can release with Dennis Montgomery.
Yep.
I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know. In the way we're in now, nothing. It's like we've never been in an anomaly like this in history where it's a lawless society. You have things going on where you're going, how does Pennsylvania turn in their electors, which is illegal, with more votes than voters.
That didn't happen, of course. Yeah, but
yes, that did happen.
It did not happen.
That did happen, David. No, you're misconstrued or lying. They turned in their electors with more votes than voters in Pennsylvania, and it went through. And everyone's called them out on it, but it's still sitting there. It hasn't been pulled down and looked at to say, how did this happen?
Okay.
And that's a fact. You can sit here, you can have Alan Duke fact check you if you'd like.
There is no state that had more.
Anything like this, in Georgia, when that Democrat got 0 votes, they had to look at it because they could have gave her 2, or her and her husband at least got a vote. Another Democrat in Georgia, this summer, another Democrat, this other lady, she got 3,700 votes and she wasn't on the ballot.
We are going to pause our conversation there with Mike Lindell. The full conversation will be on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/The David Pakman Show. We'll take a quick break and be back. Follow us on social media, interact with the David Pakman Show community, see exclusive content, see when we're taking calls live, and stay up to date on other big show announcements. We post daily. Find us on Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, and TikTok. All right, having sort of recovered from that wild interview, let's look at a couple of other things. I did want to just briefly go over some of the assertions made by attendees at both of the Trump rallies over the weekend, Saturday in Nevada and Sunday in Arizona. In Arizona, there was a woman who said something that it just sounds wrong to say about a Trump speech. Listen to this.
Okay, and what brought you out to the Trump rally today?
President Trump.
What are you looking for? What are you looking forward to see from him today?
Oh my gosh, the unity and the healing, and just move on, and we just have to heal as a nation and come together again.
And the truth. We want the...
Yeah. Unity and healing, and certainly truth, are not common occurrences, common features of a Trump rally. In fact, I just saw a list of, at a recent rally, there were about 40 different people or organizations that Donald Trump attacked. But it's interesting how you can really see in it anything you want, even if it's not there. One of the wackiest pre-rally moments at the Arizona rally was a woman doing, oh man, I don't even know how to explain this, doing some kind of speed drawing of Jesus, and the host saying, it is Sunday after all. It's a very spiritual moment.
Yeah. But so is she. She's just living her element. She's a beautiful woman painting for a large crowd of American patriots.
And obviously,
I think it's really fun to watch.
Christina, it's a spiritual moment for her as well on this Sunday. On this Sunday, it's a very spiritual moment that she's having with us right now, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah. So the woman does seem to be having some kind of an issue. Then they interviewed a guy with a Second Amendment God's Guns and Guts shirt. And this guy, he tells a sort of sad story of, for some reason, having lost many friends recently.
Also lost a lot of friends because I'm a Trump fan. I don't understand it, but you know what? We're all in for him.
Yeah. And you know what? We're going to pray for those people who cannot open their eyes and find out how great Trump is for this country, and Carrie Lake, and of course you got the whole roster of some great conservative Republicans representing the state.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, got your Second Amendment as well. I love that. God's gun, guts.
Had everything.
Yeah, look at you. And you know what? You got a cool haircut. I'm hoping.
Yeah. I don't know if the guy's serious. I mean, it's an interesting haircut nonetheless. But just really, it's perplexing. How could this guy possibly have lost any friends? And, what really strikes me about these interviews is, imagine you go up to a guy like this and you say, hey, you know what? The tariffs on China were actually not good for the United States. And we imagine they go, oh, you know what? That's true. That makes sense. These are folks that are so deep down the rabbit hole that it seems impossible. It seems impossible. Another guy now going to the Nevada rally the previous day, a guy at the Nevada rally had an incredible conspiracy theory about what's happening in Ukraine. Listen to this.
And the thing that really makes me mad about Ukraine, we put the bioweapon labs under Obama, and Obama said, "Oh yeah, we'll give up the nukes, and we got your back." We helped cause this with Ukraine under Obama, so I understand why Russia's in there doing what they're doing with the whole denazification of the Donbass region, because so many Ukrainian nationalists seem to be full-blown Nazis these days. A lot of the media I've seen come out of the Russians taking POW. These guys got swastikas all over them tattooed. And I'm like, oh, our media doesn't like to play that, though. It's really interesting how that works.
Yeah. You know, we've talked about this. There's a small Nazi presence in Ukraine, but this is just a completely whacked conspiracy theory. Obama's really responsible because he built biolabs in Ukraine and made Russia give up nukes. And so that's why, I mean, it's just unhinged, and it's wound up so tight that I don't know how you undo it. Here's another woman at the Trump rally who says she loves Putin. And it's sort of like not exactly the message that I think they're trying to associate with their movement, but it is what it is.
And with the Russia and the Ukraine conflict, what's your...
my opinion, you know, I grew up in 40 years, you know, under the Russian thing. And I love Putin.
Right.
I love Putin. Putin is making the right, you know, what the American people is built over there. He wants to clean them out, you know.
He wants to get rid of Americans? Clean them out?
Clean them out, all the biochemical place, everything, and the nuclear thing. Yeah.
We'll have to talk more about this because
he's a good president, you know. Number 2 after President 1. Number 2.
Yeah. I mean, listen, these people gravitate towards authoritarian autocrats. And so they really do see Trump and Putin, or Putin, as similar. And it's not exactly the message that Right Side Broadcasting and all these different networks want to put out there and portray, but it is accurate. It is what it is. Here's just one last one. This one's from also the Nevada rally. Here's a woman who just talks again about all the things she likes about Trump, and none of them are true.
I love him, and I think he's the kindest, gentlest man. He listens. He's not a bully like they try to, you know, and he's mean, but he's absolutely, I mean, just look at his children. They don't smoke. They don't drink. President Trump, I mean, he did something right.
So there's a perspective. And I guess maybe the most false claim in there is he's not a bully. I mean, it's hard to think of a bigger bully. So are these folks beyond reach? Is it beyond repair? Are they too far gone? Let me know what you think, and then we will follow up. It's the perpetual question, at least as far as it affects elections, we care about it. Marjorie Taylor Greene, radical Republican congresswoman, she spoke at one of the Trump rallies at this point. Who even knows which one it is? She is not even pretending anymore. She is fully doing the replacement theory thing. This is the white replacement theory or great replacement theory. Take a listen.
Joe Biden's 5 million illegal aliens are on the verge of replacing you, replacing your jobs, and replacing your kids in school. And coming from all over the world, they're also replacing your culture. And that's not great for America.
For a long time, we knew that these folks were pushing this idea, but they still had to sort of pretend not to, or they had to couch it in different language, or they had to figure out a way to make the case that it's not horribly xenophobic and in many cases racist. They've given up on that. And the idea here, there's kind of two layers to this: white replacement theory, great replacement theory. The idea is the left, Democrats, Marxists, communists, like fill in the blanks, right? Whoever it is that they claim is doing this stuff, the George Soros, right? Fill in the blanks. They are actively trying to bring people into the United States, including through undocumented immigration, in order to replace the current demographic realities of the United States. Another way to say it is the left is deliberately, by any possible means that they can think of, trying to change the racial and ethnic makeup of the United States in order to then whatever, win elections, change the culture or whatever. That's the idea of it. And it's often kind of the undertone to a lot of the reporting on shows like Tucker Carlson and others about immigration and the debate around immigration. That's what it is. There's many issues with it, but one of the issues that exists with that is that if you start to believe what Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying, you start to justify violence, attacks, domestic terrorism, whatever, against Americans, against the country, against leftists, because you believe that that is what they are doing. You start to believe there's a concerted effort to root out white people, generally is the way that it goes. And when Marjorie Taylor Greene says this stuff, it is a form of stochastic terrorism that could incite or encourage exactly those types of attacks. So this is extraordinarily dangerous rhetoric. You're never going to charge her over it, as we've talked about before, whether it's Tucker doing it or whoever. You're not going to charge them for it, certainly not under the current law, and I'm not necessarily even arguing the law should be changed. I mean, we have free speech and there's limits, but they're quite loose. Okay, but we have to understand this for what it is. It is painting an untrue picture of the goals of those left-wingers that they talk about. And it's dangerous, it's xenophobic, it's racist, it's all of these things. The crowd, it resonates with the crowd, but they don't even really understand how they're being manipulated and sort of directed by it. And they're not going to stop because they're doing really well pushing exactly this sort of stuff. We have a voicemail number. That number is 219-2-DAVID-P. I think it's sort of in reaction to the Kanye West anti-Semitism controversy. I got an interesting email. Take a listen to this.
Hey, David, it's James again. I was just wondering, do you think that most anti-Semitism comes from people who don't know any Jews? Because I don't know a whole lot of Jews. But the ones that I have met are really lovely people. I say they're more Christ-like than probably more Christians than I met. So do you think it's because they don't know any Jews or because they do know Jews and don't like them?
So the thing about, I've met lots of people in my life who, when they find out I'm Jewish, they go, I've never met a Jewish person before. It's almost always they've never met a Jewish person that they were aware of, but like most people, unless you live in extremely rural places, certain parts of the country, it's just not obvious. Like, when you meet a black person, you can tell that they're black. So when people say, oh, I've never met a Jewish person, it's actually, you probably just didn't realize it. Now, to this question, is the anti-Semitism because these folks have never met a Jewish person or they didn't like them? I don't think it's related at all to personal experience in many ways. For most of the folks that I've met, it's based on stories that they heard over and over and over again as they were growing up, regardless of who they personally knew. That's my sense. That's my instinct. We have a great bonus show for you today. Just me on the bonus show today. Producer Pat, a little bit under the weather. He'll be back very soon. We will talk about, it's happening again. 40% of Republicans say they will blame election fraud if they don't win. They're already saying it. If we don't win, we're going to blame election fraud. Also, big problems for electric vehicle manufacturer Rivian, who has had to recall almost all of their electric trucks. Not good. And we will talk about upcoming debates, the Spanish channel possibilities that are being discussed, and many, many more things. Get instant access to the bonus show by signing up at joinpacman.com. It's quick, it's easy. You can use the coupon code BIGVOTING22. The meaning should be obvious as we are just weeks away from the midterm. BIGVOTING22 at joinpacman.com.